Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has conceded what he called a painful defeat in a pivotal election that's ended his 16 years in power.
And as the campaigning enters the final stretch, the political narratives are being hardened by both candidates. By European capitals, Viktor Orbán's return would mean more trouble for Ukraine.
Hungary just flipped its future in a way that shocked the world, as a longtime powerful leader was pushed out by a new voice promising big change and a closer path to Europe. World leaders reacted fast, but Canada's response stood out, hinting that this shift is tied to massive money, security, and global power moves that could affect far more than just one country. On April 2026, voters in Budapest delivered one of the most dramatic political upsets in modern European history. Viktor Orbán, a leader who had governed Hungary with near total control for 16 years, who had become the central figure in European populist nationalism, and who had made his country the continent's most reliable internal disruptor, was removed from power in a landslide that was not even close. Peter Magyar, a 45-year-old lawyer, leading the pro-European TISA party, did not simply win the election. His party captured 138 seats out of 199 in parliament, producing a two-thirds supermajority that allows the new government to rewrite laws, reshape institutions, and fundamentally redirect Hungary's foreign policy without requiring any coalition support whatsoever. Within hours, world leaders across Europe and NATO were responding. And in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney was among them, referencing trade, defense, and security in a response that was not diplomatic courtesy. It was a signal that Canada had already connected the dots between what happened in Budapest and something worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Most people watching the Hungary election saw a European domestic story. What they missed is the chain reaction it sets in motion, one that connects trade architecture, energy exports, defense cooperation, and multilateral institutions in a way that positions Canada to benefit more than almost any other country outside the European Union itself. To understand why, you need to understand a trade agreement that has been partially frozen for nearly a decade. The Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, is not simply another deal. It is the most ambitious bilateral trade framework Canada has ever constructed. Outside of North America, since provisional application began in 2017, the results have been substantial. Two-way trade in goods increased by over 75%, trade in services surged by 97%, tariffs were eliminated on 99% of goods, and European government procurement markets opened to Canadian firms in ways that had previously been impossible. By any commercial measure, CETA has already transformed Canada's relationship with the European Union. And yet, CETA has never been fully ratified. Under European Union rules, every single member state must complete national ratification before the agreement becomes permanent. 17 countries have done so, 10 have not. Among those holdouts, Hungary, under Orbán, was one of the most deliberate and consistent blockers, openly using ratification as leverage in broader disputes, with Brussels effectively holding a critical piece of Canada's trade architecture in political limbo. The most consequential provisions of CETA, particularly those related to investment protection and long-term legal certainty for businesses operating across the Atlantic, remain inactive specifically because the agreement has never crossed the full ratification threshold. Peter Magyar has already signaled a complete reversal of that approach. He has pledged to rebuild Hungary's relationship with the European Union, unlock billions in frozen European funds that Orbán had been blocking, and align Hungary more closely with Western institutions. That commitment dramatically increases the probability that Hungary will move from obstruction to active support of full CETA ratification. And when that shift occurs, it creates momentum because every additional country that ratifies brings Canada closer to activating the full legal and economic power of a framework that already spans a market of more than 450 million people. Full ratification would unlock the investment, protection provisions that businesses on both sides of the Atlantic have been waiting 9 years for. The commercial infrastructure is already in place. The political blockage is what has been costing Canada billions in unrealized potential. The timing is particularly significant because Canada is simultaneously and aggressively building its European relationship across multiple dimensions. On March 5th, 2026, Canada's Trade Minister Maninder Sidhu met European Union Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic in Toronto. Both sides signed enhancements to CETA and officially launched negotiations for a new digital trade agreement designed to expand cooperation into the next generation of economic activity. Canada joined the European Union's Security Action for Europe framework, a defense cooperation initiative that would have been considered unlikely a decade ago. Trade, technology, and security are being integrated into a single strategic relationship. All of those initiatives become more powerful, more legally stable, and more commercially credible the moment CETA is fully ratified, because ratification provides the legal backbone that ties the entire structure together. Hungary's shift removes one of the most stubborn obstacles in that system. The energy dimension of this story may ultimately produce the largest impact. Europe has been reducing its dependence on Russian energy since 2022 at an accelerating pace. The European Union has adopted a phased ban on Russian LNG imports, with a full prohibition scheduled to take effect at the beginning of 2027, creating a supply gap that must be filled by alternative sources at scale. Canada's energy sector has been positioning itself. Specifically for this moment, Canada's energy minister has stated that the country could export up to 100 million tons of LNG per year, a figure that would place Canada among the world's top exporters. LNG Canada's facility in Kitimat began shipping its first cargoes in mid-2025, establishing that this ambition is operational rather than theoretical. Phase 2 expansion is expected to double capacity to 28 million tons annually. And additional projects, including wood fiber LNG, cedar LNG, and the proposed KSI Lissams terminal, are advancing through development. As Hungary transitions toward a government that supports European Union energy diversification rather than resisting it, it adds another voice inside the bloc, pushing for accelerated movement away from Russian supply. Every country that commits to that transition increases the aggregate European demand for reliable alternative exporters. Canadian officials have been deliberately consistent in their framing, describing Canadian LNG as supply that cannot be turned off by politics or coercion. A statement that carries specific resonance in a European market where energy security has become functionally identical to national security. The security dimension cannot be separated from the economic one. Under Orbán, Hungary blocked a 90 billion euro aid package for Ukraine, approximately 146 billion Canadian dollars, despite earlier agreements, and maintained relationships with Moscow that included allegations of sharing sensitive information with Russian officials before and after European Union sanctions meetings. For Canada, one of the strongest consistent supporters of Ukraine and a reliable advocate for NATO's eastern flank, this created a direct problem. A single European Union member state with sufficient institutional leverage could delay or weaken collective action at moments of maximum strategic importance, undermining the multilateral institutions that Canada relies on to project stability and uphold the rules-based international order. It has invested decades in building. Magyar stated immediately after his election that Ukraine is clearly the victim of the war. He declined to initiate contact with Vladimir Putin, despite Orbán's long-standing closeness with Moscow, though he indicated he would answer if Putin called and would urge an end to the conflict. He explicitly declined to initiate contact with Donald Trump, distancing himself from the international network Orbán had cultivated. He confirmed early visits to Poland, Austria, Germany, countries he described as natural partners, and signaled long-term ambitions to eventually join the Eurozone. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen summarized the shift with a direct statement. Hungary has chosen Europe. Magyar had spoken with 10 European leaders within a single day of his landslide victory. The cumulative impact that the $146 billion figure is attempting to capture is not a single transaction. It is a cascade. Full CETA ratification, unlocking investment protection provisions, expanded Canadian LNG exports to a European market, accelerating its Russian supply transition, deeper Canada, European Union defense integration under a security framework that Hungary now supports rather than undermines stronger collective action on Ukraine, through institutions that are no longer being blocked from within. Each of those outcomes becomes more accessible, more stable, and more commercially actionable, because one government changed direction on April 13th, 2026 in Budapest. Most of this has happened without the headlines that typically accompany major geopolitical shifts. By the time the full significance is widely recognized, many of the key decisions will already have been made and the benefits already flowing to those who identified the opportunity early. Canada's government recognized it within hours. The chain reaction has started.